Feeling overwhelmed by negative news? 5 Good News Stories is your daily dose of what's going right in the world. Like the 103-year-old granny who got caught speeding in her sports car because she was living life to the fullest, or the family who found their missing cat after 3 years when it showed up at their vacation rental. Remember Flop the penguin's incredible comeback after his injury? And that guy who broke the world record for most high fives in 24 hours while raising money for charity? These are the stories that remind us the world is still full of wonder and joy. 5 Good News Stories. Pure positivity 3 times a week. 5 Good News Stories, available wherever you get your podcasts. 5 Good News Stories.
Which country consumes the most coffee per person? Italy? Colombia? Somewhere else? I'm Mark Ellison, and on 5 daily trivia questions, I deliver fascinating facts and surprising statistics every weekday. Whether you're a history buff, science geek, or pop culture fanatic, there's something for everyone. 5 daily trivia questions, and the biggest coffee drinkers, it's Finland, with the average Finn consuming over 26 pounds of coffee annually. 5 daily trivia questions.
Calaroga Shark Media.
In the medieval streets of Assisi, a new kind of pilgrimage is underway. Alongside those who come to venerate St. Francis and St. Clare, 2 of Catholicism's most celebrated saints, over 1 million visitors each year now flock to see the body of Carlo Acutis. There, in the Santuario della Spogliazione, the 15-year-old lies in a glass case, wearing jeans, sneakers, and a sweatshirt, casual clothes that stand in stark contrast to the formal robes of saints from centuries past. "I'm seeing here a volcano of grace erupting. I can't believe my eyes," says the Reverend Domenico Sorrentino, Assisi's bishop. When he became bishop 2 decades ago, he explains, "This church was forgotten by the throngs visiting the monumental Basilica of St. Francis. Now it hosts hundreds of visitors daily, many taking selfies or touching the protective glass in front of the seemingly sleeping young man who died of leukemia in 2006 and will, on April 27th, become the Catholic Church's first millennial saint." This is White Smoke, Episode 15. The Making of a Millennial Saint. The story of Carlo Acutis' elevation to sainthood reveals much about the modern Catholic Church, the politics of saint-making, and most significantly, Pope Francis's vision for Catholicism's future. Behind the serene face of the teenage saint-to-be lies a complex web of institutional calculations, competing Catholic factions, and a papacy determined to make the ancient faith relevant in a digital world increasingly indifferent to organized religion. Today, we examine how saints are made in the modern Catholic Church, why this particular young man has been fast-tracked to canonization, and what his elevation tells us about the current Vatican power structure. This is the story of how the Catholic Church manufactures its heroes, and why this one matters more than most. To understand Carlo Acutis' remarkably swift path to sainthood, we must first understand the process itself. A procedure that combines elements of forensic investigation, political maneuvering, and spiritual discernment. The formal process of canonization, as we know it today, was established in the 10th century, though it has undergone numerous revisions. The most significant recent changes came under Pope John Paul II, who streamlined the process, and Pope Francis, who added new pathways to sainthood. What was once a process that typically took centuries can now, in exceptional cases, be completed in less than 20 years. The standard path to sainthood involves several distinct stages. After a person dies, a local bishop investigates their life and writings to determine if they demonstrated heroic virtue. If confirmed, the case is sent to the Vatican's dicastery for the causes of saints, where a designated postulator, essentially a spiritual prosecutor, builds a case for the candidate's sanctity. If this investigation proves satisfactory, the Pope may declare the person venerable. The next step requires verification of a miracle attributed to the candidate's intercession, typically a medical healing that cannot be explained by science. Once confirmed, the person is beatified and given the title Blessed. A second verified miracle is normally required for canonization, at which point the person officially becomes a saint. This process, however clinical it might sound, has never been purely objective. Throughout history, political considerations have influenced which causes advance and which languish. Powerful religious orders, wealthy donors, or influential cardinals can champion particular candidates, providing the resources and connections necessary to navigate the lengthy process. The path to sainthood has always involved an element of politics, explains Dr. Massimo Fagioli, a church historian at Villanova University. Not politics in the partisan sense, but in terms of which models of holiness the church wishes to promote at a particular historical moment. Cardinal Silvio Orlando, who serves on the dicastery for the causes of saints, puts it more bluntly in a private conversation. Every canonization is a statement about what kind of church we want to be. We choose our saints carefully because they become our standard bearers. In the case of Carlo Acutis, his cause has moved with remarkable speed. He died in 2006, was declared venerable in 2018, beatified in 2020, and will be canonized in 2025, less than 20 years after his death. By comparison, the canonization of Mother Teresa, hardly a controversial figure, took 19 years from her death. For most saints throughout history, the process took decades, if not centuries. The politics behind this acceleration reveal much about the current state of the Catholic Church and Pope Francis's priorities for its future. Born in London on May 3, 1991, to wealthy Italian parents who soon returned to Milan, Carlo Acutis lived what appeared to be an ordinary life of privilege. He attended prestigious schools, had access to the latest technology, and enjoyed typical teenage activities, playing soccer, making videos with his pets, and spending time with friends. What distinguished him was his precocious religious devotion. From an early age, he displayed unusual spiritual sensitivity, insisting on saying hi to Jesus and Mary in every church the family passed. After receiving his first communion at age 7, he began attending daily Mass, a practice he maintained throughout his brief life. He devoted himself to Eucharistic adoration and daily recitation of the Rosary, practices more commonly associated with the elderly than with teenagers. Yet Acutis was no religious recluse. He maintained friendships with peers who had little interest in faith, using humor and genuine connection rather than judgment. He was a witness, a silent witness through the value of friendship, through the value of generosity, helping his classmates in school, defending the teens who were bullied, his mother explains. What truly set him apart was his marriage of faith and technology. While still in his early teens, Carlo created websites for his parish, his Jesuit high school, and the Pontifical Academy Cultorum Martyrum. Most significantly, he designed and built an online database documenting Eucharistic miracles from around the world, a project that continues to be used in parishes globally. In October 2006, shortly after developing flu-like symptoms, Carlo was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia. He died on October 12th, telling doctors, "I'm happy to die, because I've lived my life without wasting even a minute of it doing things that wouldn't have pleased God." His parents honored his wish to be buried in Assisi, the hometown of Saint Francis, whom Carlo deeply admired. In 2019, his remains were transferred to the Shrine of the Renunciation at the Church of St. Mary Major, where they remain visible, still dressed in the casual clothes he wore in life. On the surface, Carlo Acutis' story presents a compelling case for sainthood, a virtuous young person who demonstrated deep faith and used his talents to serve the church. But the exceptional speed of his cause and the specific aspects of his life emphasized in official narratives point to calculated decisions about what kind of saint the Church needs right now. Pope Francis's decision to fast-track Carlo Acutis' canonization represents a strategic move to address several critical challenges facing the contemporary Church. The youth crisis. Throughout Europe and increasingly in the Americas, religious participation is plummeting among younger generations. A 2022 Pew Research study indicated that only 10% of Italian youth attend weekly Mass, despite Italy's deeply Catholic heritage. Similar patterns exist across formerly Catholic strongholds. Carlo Acutis offers a powerful counter-narrative to the assumption that serious religious commitment is incompatible with contemporary youth culture. Carlo is like the kids, explains Maria Rosario Riccio, who brought a 50-member youth group to Acutis' shrine. He's a near saint of our time, who can show teens that it's possible to love Jesus while being a regular youth. Vatican insiders acknowledge this strategic dimension. We need saints who speak to the young. Cardinal Marco Tucci told a closed meeting of the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints in 2019. We have plenty of elderly saints, missionary saints, martyrs. What we lack are saints who died with smartphones in their pockets. The Catholic Church has struggled to establish meaningful presence in digital spaces, where younger generations increasingly live, work, and form their identities. In Carlo Acutis, Francis recognizes a pioneer who intuitively understood what the Church hierarchy has been slow to grasp: that evangelization in the 21st century must embrace technology. St. Francis left the churches and went to the squares to preach. Carlo Acutis prophetically realized that today the public squares are online, on the web, observes the Reverend Enzo Fortunato, who heads the Pontifical Committee for World Children's Day. That's where youth are, that's where people are, so he lives and brings the gospel in those squares. By designating Carlo as the future patron of the web, internet and social media, Francis signals the Church's intention to claim these spaces as legitimate fields for ministry rather than threats to be feared. Francis has consistently challenged narrow definitions of sanctity, emphasizing that holiness manifests in ordinary circumstances as well as extraordinary ones. His 2018 apostolic exhortation, Gaudete et exultate, Rejoice and be glad, specifically addressed the middle class of holiness found in everyday life. Carlo Acutis embodies this vision perfectly. His holiness wasn't characterized by dramatic visions, extreme asceticism, or martyrdom, the traditional paths to sainthood. Instead, it emerged through everyday choices, kindness to the marginalized, creative use of his talents, and quiet fidelity to prayer amid a busy student life. He wasn't an alien, his mother emphasizes repeatedly, underscoring that Carlo's sanctity was accessible rather than otherworldly. This accessibility is precisely what makes him such an effective model for Francis's vision of universal holiness. Within the complex internal politics of Catholicism, the elevation of Carlo Acutis represents a careful balancing act. His traditional Eucharistic devotion and Marian piety appeal to conservative Catholics, while his social consciousness and technological innovation resonate with progressives. By advancing Acutis' cause, Francis bridges factions within the Church. The young saint's daily Mass attendance and devotion to the Rosary satisfy traditionalists, while his concern for the marginalized and innovative approach to evangelization appeal to reformers. He's the perfect compromise saint, observes Sister Elena Bartoli, who works with the Dicastery for Communication. The conservatives can't object to his doctrinal orthodoxy, while the progressives see in him a model for engaging modern culture. This balancing act is typical of Francis's approach to church governance, finding common ground between competing Catholic visions, rather than allowing either faction total victory.
What happens when political fiction starts to become reality? James Bennett, former action star turned popular California governor, who returned to acting, stars in a hit streaming drama about seizing political power. When his former chief of staff suggests turning fiction into reality, the line between entertainment and conspiracy disappears. As a viral marketing campaign creates mass confusion, Bennett faces an impossible choice. When unexpected events in Washington coincide with the show's pivotal episode, is it a brilliant promotion or something more sinister? Acting President, 8 episodes of political intrigue where entertainment becomes a dangerous game. Acting President, wherever you get your podcasts.
Want this podcast without interruptions? Caliroga Plus delivers this show and over 20 premium shows completely ad-free, right to your favorite podcast player. We've just added exciting new series including Signal Lost. What happens when the most sensitive military intelligence in the world ends up on the wrong phone? White Smoke, taking you behind the scenes of all the interesting things that happen at the Vatican. And Pager Protocol, a thriller about getting exploding pagers into the hands of the bad guys. Plus, receive all your existing favorites like Palace Intrigue about the royal family, daily comedy news, 5 daily trivia questions, and 5 good news stories. Apple Podcast users, simply tap the banner in your Apple Podcasts app that says, Uninterrupted Listening, Spotify and other players. Visit caliroga.com/plus. If you missed all that, check the links in the show notes. It's just $4.99 a month for no ads. Listen on any device, on any player you love, completely hassle-free.
In a world of smartphones and quantum computing, the fate of nations rests on technology from the past. Caliroga Shark Media presents a new podcast, Pager Protocol, a 10-part espionage thriller that will change the way audiences see the world. As an unusually large shipment of pagers makes its way to a volatile region, CIA analyst Sarah Miller grows suspicious. Meanwhile, in Zion City, Nexus Director Amos Ben David sets a daring plan in motion. Agent Eli Cohen is tasked with a mission that could determine the fate of his nation and reshape the entire region. Pager Protocol is available now wherever you get your podcasts.
The verification of miracles remains one of the most controversial aspects of the canonization process. For Carlo Acutis' beatification, the Vatican certified the healing of Matthias, a Brazilian boy born with a pancreatic abnormality. After touching a relic of Acutis, a piece of his clothing, the boy allegedly experienced complete healing that doctors could not explain medically. For his canonization, a second miracle was required: the complete recovery of a Costa Rican university student in Italy who suffered brain trauma in a bicycle accident after her mother prayed at Acutis' tomb. This case, like all canonization miracles, underwent scrutiny by both medical professionals and theologians. The process of verifying miracles exemplifies the Church's attempt to reconcile faith with modern rationality. A dedicated medical committee examines each case, looking specifically for healings that cannot be explained by current scientific knowledge. The committee includes skeptical voices alongside believers, theoretically ensuring objective evaluation. However, critics note inherent problems in this approach. Dr. Jacqueline Massini, a neurologist who has served on such committees, acknowledges the tensions involved. We're asked to apply scientific methodology to a process that ultimately relies on faith. The line between "we can't explain this yet" and "this can never be explained naturally" is blurrier than many realize. Moreover, the selection of which potential miracles receive formal investigation involves elements of subjectivity and institutional preference. Cases that align with current ecclesial priorities, like youth-focused ministries in Acutis' case, may receive more attention than others. There are thousands of reported miracles attributed to various candidates for sainthood, explains Father Thomas Rees, a Jesuit journalist who has covered Vatican affairs for decades. Which ones get thoroughly investigated often depends on who's championing the cause and how much institutional momentum it has. For Carlo Acutis, his cause benefited from powerful backers, including influential Italian clergy with direct access to Pope Francis. His mother, Antonia Salzano Acutis, has also proven an effective advocate, giving hundreds of interviews and speaking at Catholic events worldwide. Saint-making is not just a spiritual process, it's also an expensive one. The investigation of a candidate's life, the publication of official biographies, the hosting of tribunals, and the ceremonies of beatification and canonization involve significant costs. Conservative estimates suggest a typical canonization costs between €500,000 and €1 million. These expenses are typically covered by the religious order or diocese promoting the cause, sometimes supplemented by wealthy donors with particular devotion to the candidate. For Carlo Acutis, whose family possessed substantial resources, funding the cause posed no obstacle. But for candidates from poorer regions or without institutional backing, financial limitations can significantly slow or even halt the process. This economic dimension raises questions about equity in saint-making. Candidates from wealthy countries or with affluent supporters have distinct advantages in advancing their causes. The Church has attempted to address this imbalance by subsidizing some causes from the developing world, but disparities persist. Beyond the direct costs, canonization creates economic opportunities. Shrines dedicated to new saints become pilgrimage destinations, generating tourism revenue for local communities. Publishers produce books about their lives. Religious goods manufacturers create medals, statues, and prayer cards bearing their images. Assisi has already seen this economic impact with Carlo Acutis. His image now rivals that of St. Francis in souvenir shops throughout the town. Hotels report increased bookings from youth groups coming specifically to visit his shrine. Restaurants offer Carlo menus featuring his favorite foods. It's a blessing for the town, acknowledges one local business owner. The pilgrims who come to see Carlo eat in our restaurants, sleep in our hotels, buy our souvenirs. We're grateful, of course, but there's no denying the economic benefit. As April 27th approaches, the date set for Carlo Acutis' formal canonization, the Catholic Church is already treating him as the patron of a digital evangelization effort. His websites have been expanded and updated. Social media accounts in multiple languages share his quotes and story. Videos about his life have garnered millions of views on YouTube and TikTok. This digital emphasis is entirely intentional. The Vatican's Dicastery for Communication has developed a comprehensive strategy around Acutis, using his canonization as a centerpiece for outreach to younger Catholics and potential converts. We see Carlo as a bridge, explains Monsignor Lucio Ruiz, secretary of the Dicastery. A bridge between the ancient traditions of the Church and the digital reality where young people live today. His canonization isn't just about recognizing his personal holiness. It's about offering a model for Catholic presence in digital culture. This strategic dimension doesn't diminish the genuine devotion Acutis inspires. The hundreds of daily visitors to his shrine represent real spiritual connection, not merely institutional calculation. Many young pilgrims speak of feeling personal kinship with him, a saint who understood their world, their challenges, their language. He's like us, says 16-year-old Mario Girardi during a visit to the shrine. He played video games and used computers, but he also loved Jesus. That makes me think maybe I don't have to choose between my life today and faith. For Pope Francis, this is precisely the message Carlo Acutis is meant to convey, that holiness is accessible to ordinary people living ordinary lives in a digital age. By elevating the first millennial saint, Francis isn't just recognizing one young man's virtue, he's making a statement about the future of Catholicism itself. As one Vatican official put it bluntly, Carlo isn't just a saint, he's a strategy. White Smoke is a production of Carlo Shark Media, portions of which were made with the help of AI narration.